earlier we looked at what is a dummy variable and how do we create a dummy variable for one category of a categorical variable. We want to now learn how do we create a dummy variable for each category of a categorical variable. So a categorical variable might have three categories. So we want to create a dummy variable for each category that represents a value 1 for the category and 0 otherwise. If it has 4 categories, we want to create 4 dummy variables. Each dummy variable would represent 1 for the category it represents and 0 otherwise. We can do this using the gen option with tab. Now, so what we do is we write tab and then we write the name of our categorical variable, and after comma, we add the gen option. Now, inside the gen option, we specify the new name. Now, what this does is when we write a code like this will create variables which has names new name underscore 1, new name underscore 2, and so on, depending upon how much categories we have. If we have 3 categories, we'll have 3 such variables created. 4 categories, 4 such variables created, and so on. So now, note over here, we added an underscore at the end of whatever new name we want to specify to improve readability. Because whatever name we write, it's going to separate that from the number that this command is going to attach to the dummy variable created for each category. Let's look at an example to understand this. We'll do the same example as we did in part 1, where we have this categorical variable S1AQ04, which is a categorical variable for the gender of the person, where 2 represents male and where 2 represents female and 1 represents male. So initially we looked at how do we create a female dummy in part 1, where we just wanted one dummy variable for one of the categories of this categorical variable. But now what if we wanted to create a dummy variable for each category of this categorical variable? So we wanted a male dummy, which takes a value 1 if male and 0 otherwise. And we want a female dummy, which takes a value 1 if female and 0 otherwise. One way is that we can obviously, just like we learned in part 1, we can create separate dummies for each one of them using either the gen and replace option or using the one-step approach that we learned. But we don't have to do that. So we don't have to separately create dummies for each one of them. Instead, we can just simply use the gen option with tab. So here I write tab, and then we write the name of the categorical variable, which in this case is our gender variable, which is S1AQ04. And then after a comma, we write the gen option. And inside gen, we're writing the new name that we want. So I want the name gen underscore dumb, and then I put an underscore at the end of it. What this will do is now, let's do this. So this is going to create 2 new variables that are named gendum1 and gendum2. Let's just see that from here. So we can see over here that what this did, this created 2 new variables. Gen underscore dumb underscore is the name I specified inside the gen option. What it did was it attached 1 to it for the male and 2 to it for female. If I had not put the underscore at the end of dumb, then the 1 and the dumb would have been together. So putting underscore just helps improve readability. So now we have created 2 dummy variables, 1 for male and 1 for female. So now what we can do is if we want to check whether they actually take 0 and 1 values, each of these. So what we can do for that is if we want to see that they actually take 0, 1 values, so we can use the tab option, because that allows us to see the frequencies and the percentages of any categorical variable. So one option is that I do tab gendum1, tab gendum2, but we can use a shortcut. We can use tab1. What tab1 does is it takes a list of categorical variables and will apply the tab option to each one of them. And over here, note, instead of writing tab gent underscore dumb underscore tab 1 gent underscore dumb underscore 1 gent underscore dumb underscore 2, we have used a wildcard over here, which is represented by this asterisk. What the wildcard does is it's just a shortcut for calling multiple variables. Now, how does that work? Like if you have a certain part which is common, which in this case is gent underscore dumb underscore, and you have a certain part in the variable name which is different, which in this case would be 1 in the case of the male dummy and 2 in the case of the female dummy. What you can do is you can put a wildcard for the different part, and Stata will call all those variables, which in this case have the same common part. So when I do tab 1, gent underscore dumb underscore asterisk, so what I'm saying is apply this tab 1 command to all variables that start with gent underscore dumb underscore. And apart from the asterisk, there can be anything different over here to call those variables. So this will apply tab 1 to both gent underscore dumb underscore 1 and gent underscore dumb underscore 2, because the asterisk means that you can put anything different over there. So if we do this, so we can see that the male dummy also had values 0, 1, and the female dummy also had values 0 and 1. So this shows that we have applied the tab with the gen option correctly. So in this way, we learned how we can use the gen option with tab to create a dummy variable for each category of any categorical variable. And then after that, you can use the tab 1 option to see that the dummies created actually have values 0 and 1. And when the dummies that you've created, when you want to call those dummies, you can use wildcards for that.